Hey guys, this is Josh, and today I'm going to be helping us discover if psychic archaeology is really a real phenomenon or not, and I don't think that the results will surprise any of us. So, what is psychic archaeology? Well, it was kind of invented by Frederick Blythe Bond. He was a 19th century acclaimed archaeologist, and he thought he had the power through channeling the spirits of 17th century monks through a process called automatic writing with some monks, or not with some monks, sorry, with some psychics that he found, that he could accurately describe how ancient ruins looked and then find them. He was specifically interested in Arthurian legend, and he wanted to find the Edgar Chapel in Glastonbury, England. After contacting these psychics and making some really crude drawings that we'll laugh at here in a second, he instructed all of his workers that he'd hired to dig in a certain location, and then lo and behold, they immediately found the foundations of a church. So he claimed, of course, that this was all due to his psychic power that he had channeled through these psychics. He had been in contact with these monks, who in turn helped him write and draw what it looked like. He claimed that it was literally the monks themselves telling him what the location looked like and where it was, and that was how he came about all of this. Let's take a look here really quick at these sketches that he made. So we can see here we have some little ornate shapes. I don't know. It's really hard to make out what some of this is. This kind of looks like some kind of bird, like a wing. I think it says Angelo right there. This looks like it could be an angel, maybe. We see this weird scribble up here, and over here on this right-hand picture here, I don't even know what's going on there. But evidently this was what the architecture of the building was supposed to look like, according to him. But there was no real way to know for sure, because all that they did end up discovering at the location was the foundation of a church. That was all that was discovered. But reading most of this literature online, you'll find people claiming that, yes, of course, they found it, and the rest of this, you can't deny it. So it's likely that it was true as well, because they helped him actually find the location. And this next segment I have dubbed "Put That Artifact on My Forehead." You might be wondering why, but it's actually due to there were two archaeologists, Robert Broom and John Talbot Robinson, and they believed that evolution had been controlled spiritually, like some entity, like God, had somehow had a hand in controlling the way that evolution occurred. Especially after they discovered a lot of bones of Australopithecus, and after joining forces, had discovered more Australopithecus bones, and for some reason decided to recruit the help of a psychic, Jeffrey Hodgson, in the 1940s. I don't know how it came about. Most of the websites I found of people supporting these claims didn't really go into much more detail about why they thought they needed a psychic's help. But ultimately, they had discovered that if they put any artifact on Hodgson's forehead when he was reclining back in a chair without him seeing it, that he would accurately be able to describe what the artifact was and the life of the person, who had created the artifact, and that he was never wrong, that everything he had said was feasible, that it could have actually been what the artifacts were used for, and that he was able to tell what the artifacts were themselves. We know it's probably not true, so let's get into some debunking some of these claims here. So, starting back with the psychic archaeology stuff, many sites discovered by psychic archaeologists are pretty easily discoverable by almost anybody. Chances are any of us in this class could locate and pick out some locations that these finds have been found in. Lots of it has to do with geographical location, and when thinking about if I were to build a structure or a settlement, what would an ideal location be for that structure or settlement? So lots of looking around riverbanks in certain clear out areas. If there's any sign of like unnatural deforestation at all, or like light foliage, maybe looking in those areas. This is all stuff that if you have any kind of background in basic geology or anthropology, archaeology, you should be able, even with a little bit of help, to find these locations and find that you yourself have been a psychic archaeologist all this time and you didn't even know it. How crazy is that? But what about Bond? Let's get more into the nitty gritty about what he was all about. So Marshall McCusick was key proprietor. He debunked most of the claims of psychic archaeologists, and he coined the term the captive of his own time principle. What this principle essentially shows us is that many of the psychic archaeologists who claim to be able to talk to people, to find out information about sites and where they are and what they looked like and what the structure was like, and some people even claim to have even more details and to be in direct communication and can tell what the daily lifestyles were like in these places by the people who used to live there. They're all pretty much based on popular knowledge. So not necessarily the truth. And because of that, you'll find a lot of the fallacies that exist within popular media and portrayals of things. So if we're talking about Arthurian legend, like we were earlier with Bond, he actually shed a lot of light on things that were known by the popular not historic tellings, but the romanticized, popularized tellings of the Arthurian legend, the literal stories and fables. Lots of this was not centered around actual history and facts. It was around that kind of romanticized vision of how cool and great was this whole Arthurian time, kind of this like mystic otherworldly godliness that kind of encompasses a lot of that for people who believe this kind of stuff. He didn't actually fall in line with most of the legitimate history behind King Arthur and the correct archaeological relevance from that period and what actual artifacts and structures we would find in buildings of that period. And going further back into how to debunk this whole thing about we can tell what artifacts are by putting them on our foreheads, the author of our book, Frauds, Myths, and Mysteries in Science, had a situation where a student of his claimed that his friend was actually a psychic and had kept bothering the student about, hey, I want to help out with your archaeological research. I think that I can really use my powers here to help you guys find dig sites and help you learn about some of the artifacts that you're uncovering. And the professor said he sounded sincere. He wasn't like trying to fool anybody. Like he actually believed that he had this power and that he wanted to use it for good. He wanted to use it to, help progress many of the digs that he was starting to try to work on, but not wanting to associate any of his dig sites with psychic archaeology. He told the student after enough bothering that, yes, okay, we'll run a test really quick and I'll see if your friend is actually a psychic archaeologist or not. So the test he had the student hold two items, or I think it was like several items. And for each item, he wanted him to give a retelling of what the life was like of the person who had created the artifact. And he said for each artifact that the student held, he gave a really compelling story that was very believable. He would actually, under normal circumstances, have a hard time debunking that any of that could be false. It's just so unknown that confidently stating facts about things that would be historically accurate, you can't really debunk that. But what the student didn't know, though, was that he had actually created all of the artifacts that the student was examining this whole time. He himself had taught classes in how to replicate artifacts that could be found to give students an appreciation of some of the hard work that actually went into crafting some of the things that they were uncovering. And having the student hold the artifacts, of course, if he was going to give the correct psychic prediction, he would have said that this is a short, curly-haired middle-aged professor, I think is what the author said. But of course he did not. So alongside that, we've disproved psychic archaeology here. Within a doubt, of course. But yeah, that's all I got on this topic. I thought it was kind of funny, coming from like a psychology background, kind of seeing how people think about psychics in this field, as well as how we usually also make fun of them in the field of psychology for usually using pseudoscience and this shroud of mystery to pass off as like real science. But I hope you all found this mildly enjoyable and got a laugh out of it. So thanks.